Good evening. I call to order the June 5th, 2017 work session of Swarthmore Borough Council. Mr. Cregan will not be with us tonight because of a family issue that requires his presence in California. And I assume Mr. Murphy will be along.
He just came up on his bike.
He just came up on his bike. Okay.
Yes.
So he's taking off his pants clips and will be in. At this point, we'll entertain public comment on any subject of interest in the borough. If you wish to address us, please come to the rostrum, tell us your name and your street address or which particular house number on Riverview it might be, in the case may be. And then tell us what you have in mind. Thank you.
My name is John Hodge, I live at 533 Riverview Road. We understand that more than a month ago, a planting plan was submitted to Mr. DeBatone, and we wondered what progress had happened on that.
We did, myself and a couple other borough representatives met with Mr. DeBatone and some of his representatives on site, asked him to provide us with a response to our plan. He was agreeable to some of it, not to others. We asked him to give us a written response. I had hoped to have it last week, but I talked to his lawyer yesterday. He said he should have it to me in the next couple of days. So we're waiting for a written response. The goal is not to have him just do it on his own. We want to look at what he's done and get comfortable that it's going to work for our purposes. You know, that's where we're going with this.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I'm Andrea Knox, also of 533 Riverview Road. And I want to thank you for the work that you're doing with Mr. DeBatone on the plan and the care that you're taking to see that what he does is acceptable to Swarthmore as well, and I appreciate that. But I actually wanted to ask about something else, which may be something that you guys all have talked about, and I just haven't been here. There was a story in yesterday's Inquirer about these small cell phone towers,
Yes.
which seem like they're coming down the pike, and I just wanted to be sure that Swarthmore is, aware of the issues around that, and
We're so on top of that, too. And during the president's section, I will have something to say about it.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
More Riverview. Yeah, Riverview is a very hard location.
Just give us your name and your house number. And then.
Right. My name is Linda Houck. I live at 215 Riverview Road, and I'm here to ask council to revisit and actually do a more comprehensive analysis on the development of short-term rentals in Swarthmore. There's a short-term rental that's been operating for the last couple of months. 2 doors down from me, and I feel like it really is impacting the residential character of the neighborhood. And I wasn't aware of the existence of Airbnbs in Swarthmore until the one next to me started operating. But I think given my reading of the zoning code, I don't think our zoning code really addresses the issue appropriately, and there are a lot of different facets to it. I mean, it impacts the residential neighborhood, and there are other issues related to fairness that I think that this council has addressed like a year ago. So I really would like to see council kind of do a deeper dive into the issue and probably have some public hearings about it. Maybe in the fall when folks are back from vacations. I think, July and August would not be a great time for that sort of thing, but I think it's something that needs to be addressed.
I'll just add to that. My name is Sharon McGee, and I live at 209 Riverview. Linda's on one side, and a brand new, a couple months old Airbnb has suddenly popped up next to me with a transient population of rentals, different people every single night coming into the rental, leaving. The rental, and the previous owners who lived there since I think the house was built, recognized that the house was not zoned as a rental except for in-laws and home businesses. And the previous owners actually left because they were retired, and they said if we could have afforded to stay here and rent this out on a month-to-month basis, we would have done that. But the new owners recognize that it is not legal to rent it as a traditional lease rental, so they've taken it upon themselves to operate an Airbnb, where we've had different people coming in, people we don't know, different cars. It's been daily in some cases. So it's a quality of life, and the more we talk to people about this, the more we realize that it's not just a single issue. That, in passing, people have said, oh, we have one on our street, and I wish it wasn't. So I guess where we're coming from, what's the difference if it's not okay to rent a residence as a rental? In what world is it okay to rent it to a different party every night? And in terms of the character of the neighborhood, it's a slippery slope issue. If they can do it and Linda can do it, then where do we stop with people who can rent their properties or their homes out on a nightly basis? So just thinking that it's probably something that as a town we want to address moving forward in the future, because this is becoming a more common occurrence in society right now.
Okay. I'm going to ask Jane and, as appropriate, Bob Scott, to tell you how we are treating them now. That's not to say this is how we should go forward treating them, but we will give you the analysis which has guided us to this point.
Could I ask a question first? This property you're talking about, is it in a separate, is it in an accessory?
Correct.
Okay. So it's kind of a unique separate.
Well, yes and no. I mean, from what I understand, it started as that, but really you're asking council to look at the broader picture.
Correct.
Even if it was in the.
Right, I am.
So I think I can answer that
It
question.
started with
Right.
this one issue that affects me personally quite a bit.
Right.
But we just kept thinking, we can't be the only ones that have this issue with a transient population and a quality of life moving in and out on houses next door to us. And if it's okay with them, then why isn't it okay somewhere else? And also they've vacated their house on weekends and rented that out too. Again, if it's not okay for a long-term rental, then why is it okay to have different people in there who I don't know?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We hear you.
All right.
If you'll take a seat, we'll tell you where we are.
I'm not quite sure any house can be rented. What do you mean long-term rental? There's no.
Well, no, I'm just saying, if it's not legal for long-term, then what makes it okay for
You mean
one night?
the small house that you're talking?
Well, any house, I mean, we're just talking about.
Any house can be rented long-term rental. There's no prohibition.
Okay,
in the law.
but, again, we're coming down to are there guidelines for someone who chooses to vacate every weekend and bring in someone different? And that's where we're saying we might need some.
Can we respond if you'll have a seat? Thank you.
When this came up before.
It started when the Pope came to town,
Right.
and we began to be aware of Airbnbs being advertised. And that's really what first prompted consideration of how we have an ordinance that deals with B&Bs, which required a permitting process, etc., and certain requirements as to number of people and parking, etc. And that then led to discussions of how we should now treat these now manifested Airbnbs. So that having been said, that's how we started with this.
And I believe what is currently permitted in the borough Airbnb-wise is not more than 2 rooms, not more than 2 persons. Is that correct? So that is what is permitted. So if this property is having more than two guests at a time, that is not permitted.
So when people advertise on the Airbnb website, which is still in place that we found out, I was asked to send a letter to find out how many people were there. Because in general, any home in the borough can have up to 3 unrelated people, having nothing to do whether it's one night or 100 nights or 1,000 nights. It's just how many unrelated people can live together. If we had one home on Dartmouth Avenue where they had more than 3 unrelated people that they wanted to rent to, and they did go through the process and get a bed and breakfast approved. That said, bed and breakfasts are allowed at almost every location in the borough, and they also are not regulated as to how transient they can be. They do require somebody to be in the home with the people who live there, but that can be way more than 2 unrelated people. It does require approval by the zoning hearing board through the special exception process.
And isn't there a separation requirement too? You can't have more than one
2 on a block or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And there's a parking requirement.
Mhm. Yep.
And because the only other thing I'd throw out there is there's kind of a long history of people taking in boarders, college students, and that is, the 2 unrelated. How many unrelated?
Up to 3 unrelated.
Up to 3 unrelated. That kind of played into our analysis when we were thinking about what's permitted with Airbnbs, kind of acknowledging that around this borough there are plenty of people with at least a couple rooms in their house to students.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask our planning and zoning.
It's already on the agenda for the 22nd of June.
There you go.
there we go, thank you.
How's
Thank you.
that?
Very good, thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Anybody else this evening, public, comment on any subject? Stephen?
Steve Ellis from 529 Riverview Road, and I just had a follow-up question to Jonathan's, and it's great we're going to get a response hopefully in the next couple of weeks, but how will that information be shared back to us, and then will we have any ability to have input on it from the people on Riverview?
On the planting plan itself?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure what he's going to come back with,
Okay.
where the fence is and all this other stuff. So I mean, do we come to these meetings to hear that, or do we have input into it, or is it just?
If we get a written response, I will share it with Tony and Sabina's council, who then normally will give to them and shares with them.
That's fine, and then it'd be time for us to at least to come to another meeting.
Yeah, we certainly could come.
Recognition of Groundhog Day. and-
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you all for coming. Roll call, well, I've done a roll call. We're all here except for Mr. Cregan, who is away. Reference was made to small cell antennas. There was an article in yesterday's Inquirer which had a pretty full discussion of the issue of small cell antennas, which are antennas a number of companies are in the business of installing in, they would hope, in rights-of-way in towns of various sizes, or either with or without encouragement from municipalities. Apparently Philadelphia is happy to have them all over the place. And the function of this is to particularly, as more and more people are downloading more and more data over the new 4Gs and soon-to-be 5Gs networks, to increase the carrying capacity of the infrastructure necessary to serve everybody as we all do what we do on our smartphones all day long. The big legal issue that exists is whether, underlying fundamental issue is to whether the companies that do this, install these antennae, they keep saying antennas because just the way Latin has fallen out of use in this country, and just as people say, the data has been whether they are public utilities. And if they are public utilities, then there goes with that certain rights of eminent domain to in fact put these antenna in rights of way. And there was a proceeding before the Public Utility Commission, several proceedings, to decide that issue. And we, on behalf of the borough, took a position with the Public Utility Commission, wrote a letter saying, opposing the effort to have these entities found to be public utilities. And in late May, the Public Utilities Commissions held that they are not public utilities, and that they're implicit in that is they don't have eminent domain, and they don't have a right on their own without any local say to install these antennae, which can be 50 feet high, or they tend to be poles. Sometimes they can be attached to an existing light pole or power pole. They're not unexpectedly counsel for these entities has just filed a petition for review of that decision by the Public Utility Commission before the Commonwealth Court, to which appellate court in Pennsylvania issues such as this go. And a decision we have to make is to whether or not, if we as a borough wish to intervene in that proceeding in support of the position taken by the Public Utilities Commission. We have 30 days within which to do it, and we've not yet decided whether to do that. And to some extent, we'll be guided by our advice of our solicitor on that. It won't be indispensable for us to do that, because there are lots of entities bigger and more powerful even than I got a copy of these papers today that were served on me as president of Borough Council of Swarthmore Township, Pennsylvania. But at least they had the right street address, so it got there. So we have to decide what to do as to whether we want to file papers in support of the position taken by the Public Utilities Commission. So that is the state of affairs. We believe our president is, and so I should back up, that if in fact they don't have a right to do it as a public utility, then the question is, how is our zoning ordinance in good position to regulate them if they come before the borough or make application to do it under our zoning laws? And I think the preliminary view is that we have a fairly robust regulation of antennae already in existence. It's a question whether we should do as other townships have done, or townships have done, have something more pointedly directed to rights of way, and we'll be considering that. So that's the state of affairs as to that. Now, Environment Committee.
No report.
Okay, will you be meeting this month?
No.
Finance Committee.
Yes, just a quick update. We did have a pension committee meeting this past month, and with our actuary, and so there's some possible changes that we're considering. He's still running a few extra numbers for us, but potentially there's been some change in his recommendation for what we use in the police pension plan that we may undertake, which would basically cause approximately a $30,000 increase in our MMO. On the other side, in the civil service,
Why don't you say what an MMO is?
it's basically our minimum municipal obligation, such that we make contributions to our pension plan every year, and we do get some state aid. But so it would basically, if we followed what he suggested, and there's a couple of different options, potentially that would increase our contribution $30,000.
Okay.
So again, it's very preliminary. I think next month, hopefully, we'll be back with the actual recommendation for that. And then, but there's a little bit better news on the civil service side because of some of the aging and also the assets in the civil service pension committee, and again, using the same assumptions, and again, they're not final, potentially could result in a $60,000 decrease in our MMO for the civil service pension plan. So potentially some good news, but we haven't made a final decision, and he's still running some other numbers for us. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up that we are looking at that. And the other thing, just to quickly comment, is the actual funding level has been improving pretty gradually. I think we're almost up to 100% in the civil service pension plan, and we're above 80% in the police pension plan.
Okay, the civil service plan is the plan that applies to our non-uniform employees.
Correct.
Michael, that's all
Yes.
for fiscal 2018?
Yeah,
Was that ongoing this year?
it's actually the number is based on 2017. So yeah.
Okay.
And the potential increased contribution would be for next year, right?
18 and 19.
Okay, 18 and 19.
Thank you.
Will the finance committee be meeting this month?
No, we will not.
Okay.
That's all.
I should have mentioned at the beginning that we will, at the conclusion of our regular session, this evening have an executive session, the subjects of which will be possible litigation involving the borough. And we are about to begin contract negotiations with our uniformed employees, and so we have to begin to think about the approach that the borough is going to take with respect to those negotiations. So that will be a subject also of the executive session. General government.
Yes, we will be meeting at our regular time, which would be Monday, July 19th at 7:30.
June, right?
Sorry, yeah, June. I'm moving too fast. Thank you. And at our last meeting, the only real thing I'd mention from that, if I hadn't already mentioned it, is that Dean Michelson stepped down as the chair of Swarthmore Town Center, and Sharon Mester stepped up to be the chair of Swarthmore Town Center, which is great. And we've had a really great working relationship with Anita Barrett, who's sitting in the office now, and I think that's all going super. So we're really happy with the way that's going. And two other things, and Jane, maybe you can speak to some of this about Alex and the time bank, and then we can talk about this permit application. I'll mention the permit application first. So you delegated to us to look into having a more formalized process for permit application and process for the approval of shutting down streets for town center events. And Jane has done a great draft of that. We went over it today. We talked about some tweaks that we'll do. We talked about bringing it to our general government committee on the 19th to kind of finalize that and then bring it back to the full council. And I would just say the gist of it is that it's not super, super complex, but it would involve the police and the fire and Jane looking at it first, making recommendations to the chair of the general government committee, the chair of the general government committee, potentially being delegated permission to make a decision on it that would be final, but also having the ability to bring it to the committee or to the full council.
Right.
And I'd add the impetus was, we just had more things going on in town. So
Right.
before it was once or twice, and they were always the exact same things. So we need to add a process because we have more requests.
And this being a somewhat orderly town, there's two people who have potential events. And when I told both of them that we were going to institute a process, they thought it was great. Like, I think it really made them feel like they had a place to send their information, somebody was going to review it, it was going to be organized. So far it's one event in August, and then the co-op is planning something for its 80th, I think. And so I think it will be well received.
Yes.
Good.
So, and Jane, you want to talk about Alex?
Yeah, just our intern has been working on this time bank process, which is a way to share volunteer hours in town. And the people on the Aging in Place Task Force really thought that it would be helpful for seniors in town, both to use, to receive services and to give. But it's going to end up way more comprehensive than that. So we actually have bought the software, which costs $25. And we're going to be, right? Yeah, and it's actually on my credit card. But there's a very active time bank in Media and a very active time bank in Phoenixville. And Alex met with them last week. And we hope to have a meeting with the Swarthmore Community Center. The reason it's done is because we approached them, I guess, earlier this year to see if they might be the umbrella agency. It is really helpful, it seems, for an existing organization to sort of take Time Bank on. So if all goes well, that meeting will be in June. We will start trying to get members of the Time Bank at the farmers market and other venues in the summer. So.
And I would add that I met Alex today. He's a charming young man, and Jane had him go meet with the senior citizens.
We loved him, of course. He's a 19-year-old, right? He went to the meeting with the seniors. He's met with the SRA, and immediately got that there are a lot of things out there already for people to do, but organization and transportation is a problem. And we're sort of hoping that Time Bank will address particularly that transportation issue. So.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Who's going to report, Nick, the planning and zoning, excuse me.
Planning and zoning, thank you. We did not have a meeting last month, but we will be having a meeting on June 22nd at 7:30 p.m. And right now, the only item on the agenda is taking a look at the bed and breakfast issue.
Okay.
And everyone is welcome to come to that and bring their input.
And that's in this room?
That will be in this room.
At what time of day?
7:30 p.m.
Okay.
Public meeting, everybody is welcome to attend.
Good.
And it is something that we took a hard look at last year and came up with a plan, but I think maybe we just need to take another look at it.
Has anybody recently just gotten onto Airbnb to see how many are being advertised?
I have it right now. While they were talking about it, I was listening to about 6, maybe.
Okay.
But they don't, it's not always clear that they're necessarily in the borough, they might be near.
They don't look very current either. One's still talking about the book.
Yeah.
Must have been a Presbyterian. Now that he came and went.
No longer.
No kidding. I'm
He was an
sorry.
atheist, actually.
Okay, gotta be careful. I'm
That's
sorry.
not part of my report, whatever that just
Okay.
is.
We'll make sure to capture it in a minute.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Okay, so that's it for planning and zoning.
Okay, public safety. Who's going to take the laboring award? Mr. Cregan. David Cregan, who's Vice President of Council, is also Chair of Public Safety, and again, couldn't be with us tonight, so Mary has agreed to take on the report for that committee.
Okay, I do not have a committee report.
Okay.
I don't have
Understood.
that. But I am able to hopefully discuss the two things that are on our agenda. First of all, the proposed changes to the civil service regulations that I don't know if you have them in front of you or if you've had a chance to take a look at them. But just to go over them briefly, hopefully, if you will look at section 2.3, the organization of the commission, this concerns what constitutes a quorum. And if you have, hopefully, the red line or blue line language in front of you, you will see that because of a change that I think was a change in Pennsylvania law maybe last fall, the number of people, members needed to constitute a quorum for a meeting of the Civil Service Commission changed from 2 to 3 members. And then if any of those members are absent and a quorum is not reached, the chair can designate as many alternate members of the commission to sit on the commission as may be needed to provide a quorum. And then there's some more language about what an alternate member of the commission is able to do. At this point, we have not appointed any alternate members to the Planning Commission. We had talked about doing that and then never really progressed any further with it, but that probably is something we should do. And then going on to the...
One always wonders what it is that caused the legislature to decide all of a sudden for something like this, they got to change what a quorum is. You just got to know that somebody in Lackawanna County ran roughshod or something.
Yeah, maybe a lawsuit or
Okay.
the quorum
Okay, thanks.
lobby. I'm not done, there's more.
No, I know.
All right.
The important thing comes next.
Okay. If we're looking at section 3.5 on page 7, subparagraph C, this is something that the Civil Service Commission met about with David Cragen and the mayor and Chief Craig and Sergeant Stufflet and Thomas to talk about the changes that are going into subparagraph C, which has to do with education of police officers. What we are adding is that in addition to having 60, let me back up. What the applicant had to have prior to these changes, they had to be a graduate of high school or its equivalent, and they had to have completed the equivalent of 2 full-time years of college. And that was it. Now that could have included the credits earned toward their Act 120 certification, which is their police academy time, correct, Bob? Scott?
Yes.
I'm sorry. What we are doing now is, after a lot of deliberation and looking at what some other police forces in the area have done, now we are going to accept 3 years of continuous service as a police officer with a state, federal, or municipal law enforcement agency may be substituted for the 60 credit college requirement. 60 credit college requirement. Are there any questions about that?
And well, first, does anybody else have questions or comments about it? I have questions.
Go ahead.
Yes, but I wanted to give other people. What seems to have been the impetus for this change, which I gather this has been a requirement for a long time, and indeed one which every present member of the police department had to meet in order to be hired in the first place?
Yes, they had to need it to be hired in the first place, and I think some people on the police force have completed their education while they have been employed here. Is that right, Jane?
You mean their bachelor's degree?
Yeah,
All of them.
all of them did that. But the impetus for this change was at the request of Chief Craig because they felt as if they could not get a big enough applicant pool without making this change. They felt that there were good candidates who were out there who did not have that educational requirement but did have the experience, and that we were shutting those people out. So there was a lot of debate about that because not everyone was convinced that that was a good idea. But after listening to the sergeants explain their thought process, it did make sense that you could get someone right out of college or right out of the police academy with no experience, and that presents sort of a different set of issues as opposed to maybe getting someone who doesn't have the college but has the experience that you need, especially because my understanding is right now we have patrol officers out there alone.
Okay, has there been any other Delaware County Police Department municipality that has had this same requirement we have had?
Another Delaware County Police Department?
That required any or 60 or however many college credits?
Radnor, I think.
We did.
But not many, actually.
Chief said there were, but there weren't many.
Yeah.
There's quite a few in Montgomery
Yeah.
County.
I mean, my understanding is that we can still take college into account when we are reviewing candidates. It's only about whether someone's eligible to even get to that next, get into the pool kind of thing.
Is it intended that this 3 years of service be full-time?
Not necessarily. It can there are evidently a lot of part-time officers, but my understanding is that they may be part-time in more than one place and that they work so much part-time it really constitutes full-time. And that's why part-time officers would be considered as well if we agree to do this.
Okay.
Apparently there are an awful lot of part-time police officers who want to be full-time police
Oh,
officers.
sure.
And that's their-
And who don't have college credits. I have myself reservations about making the change because I think, particularly in this overeducated community, I think it's not unhelpful to have police officers who have some college time. I would note also that one of the benefits provided by our present contract with the FOP for our police department is that the borough is obligated to provide reimbursement for officers who take courses that are related to the criminal justice system, but nevertheless courses, but up to $2,000 per officer per year. And so that we're in a position now that we may be paying for 60 credits, which previously they would have had to bring with them that didn't cost the borough anything, but we will now be paying for.
That's correct.
And so I find that troublesome. And they also, it is such that the provision in the contract, and I'm sure that the FOP intends that this be in the next contract, although we haven't agreed to it, is that if one officer is not using the money, that money becomes available to any other officer in the department for the same purpose. Now, I think this is the one thing we'll figure out as we're preparing for the negotiations is how much this is actually costing us now in terms of the totality of what we're paying for public safety And my guess is, it's not an enormous, I think it's probably not an enormous amount, but it's not an insignificant amount. And so I'm a little concerned if now we are going to be paying to provide to officer college level background that heretofore we would have expected them to come to us having paid for it themselves. So I myself, is this something we're supposed to act on tonight?
No.
Okay. I have the reservations that I've just expressed. I don't doubt for a moment that the potential applicant pool will be greater if this requirement does not exist than if it does exist. I'm certainly not in a position to say that having been said, that we'll find really top-notch officers such as we presently have, and we're fortunate in our most recent hires to get people who, when they came to us, had satisfied this requirement. I recognize that this limits flexibility, but I have the concerns I've expressed.
I would just add, I mean, you mentioned that we're an overeducated community, which may or may not be relevant, but I do think one part that's relevant is that there are 1,500 college students here that they're responsible for. I would just add that in.
And was this, does this come to us with the unanimous recommendation of the Public Safety Committee?
When we had the meeting with the Public Safety Committee and the Civil Service Commission, it was discussed whether or not it had to come back to the Civil Service Commission one more time.
Right.
And we all decided at that point that we thought it could go sort of straight to public safety and straight to us here. But if people are thinking that we need to sort of kick it back down and revisit it some more, there's no rush to do this that I'm aware of. We could certainly discuss it further, and maybe what we need to do is have Chief Craig here before all of Borough Council to answer any questions about why they think this would be helpful. I mean, I think Tim answered a lot of it very well, but I think that might be helpful to have him here before we decide anything.
Well, I take it as true and correct everything that's been said in defense of the proposal tonight. So I don't know what would be served by kicking it down to somebody else. Are we going to test how many people have, what are your data to support the fact that we won't get a sufficient panel from which to choose if we have this criteria? Because I guess until you go looking for them, you don't know.
Yeah.
There was anecdotal evidence that the sergeants discussed about various departments who were hiring and the applicant pools that they were getting being much smaller than what they had seen in the past or hoped for. Again, we can still use the college as part of the criteria when we're hiring. We're just not having it as a requirement.
I understand.
Coming in, and that's we pushed pretty hard on them in the meeting about it, and they pushed pretty hard back about it.
I just had real quickly, the one comment you made regarding the cost of now, more than likely, because we want to have an educated sales force and we already have that in the budget, quick back of the envelope, it would be somewhere between $15,000 to $30,000 a year if they decide to pursue that education, if you're going to try and garner 60 credits. 15,000 is like the Delaware County Community College side, 30,000 would be the higher side.
Some also have master's degrees now.
Right, but the $15,000 cap has really helped. I can tell you right now, they are asking for no cap and 100% reimbursement.
Sure,
So
to Mr.
that's
Gross' point,
clearly
you're adding costs that you would not add. It's not simply expanding
and there's a
the
proposed,
pool.
right, well, $15,000, there are years where we spent 15, I would say it's been between 10 and 15, but there's been that cap. So
What is it, the 80%? Is there an aggregate dollar cap? Or is it just that we pay 80%?
we pay 80%, but if you are the only person in the department in a given year in school, then you can spend the entire $15,000 that's been allocated in the budget.
Okay. So,
Only reimbursing 80%.
but is the 15,000 in the contract?
It is.
Okay, right. And certainly, okay, yes, Ross, sorry.
Just one question, because Michael, you brought up about the college and all of that. And I remember last year we prepared that operating procedure with the college security that was fairly
Memorandum of understanding, right.
which just makes me wonder, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we should ask the college what they want on this, but it makes me wonder, since they have professional staff up there who interact with our force, I'm just curious whether anybody asked their professional staff whether they have a broad view about this issue or not. Not that that would determine anything, but they are professionals working in security, and that our officers are up there a lot. So, I don't know, it's just
I'd be very surprised if they would have the temerity to tell us who to hire as our policeman.
No, I know.
That's not.
But this is a pretty big issue, because last year the city of Philadelphia went through this. I mean, there's been a lot out there about this.
It's part of the overall conversation about the training of
Just curious.
police officers.
I take it they didn't.
Well, Tim holds the monthly management team meeting with the police, and we typically attend, and I think there wasn't one last month, is that right? Or did I miss it? There wasn't one, but I don't recall being there and having that particular question asked. I mean, it's certainly something, if Tim thinks it's appropriate, and you want that asked, we could ask that at a meeting. But again, I think the college would say, that's up to you. I don't think they would feel comfortable weighing in, although I understand what you're asking.
Particularly since the chief and the sergeants are sitting in the meeting.
Correct. And they would like to have it, so.
Okay, well, maybe we can,
Well, we have one more thing.
yeah, but on this one, in terms of the timetable, on the one, it was suggested that there's no rush about this, but by the same token, we do have a vacancy. And so I think they would like to get on with it. And so, but why don't we come back, having kicked this around a bit tonight, and come back prepared next week with now having given some more further thought to see where we are on the issue.
And David Cragen will be back
And David
next
will
week,
be
and
back.
that will be
Yeah,
helpful
yeah, that
to
will
us.
be helpful. Okay.
Agreed.
Mary, you have something else?
Well, on this same document on page 8, we are also adding language in subparagraph I, prohibiting tattoos. So this is, I will read it out loud, no visible tattoos when wearing the Swarthmore Borough police uniform, including a short sleeve uniform shirt. So that is completely new language, and that is based on some research that was done that showed that a lot of other police departments had that particular language. So I don't know if we've had the solicitor weigh in on that one, or if that could be a...
We've discussed it. I have a little concern that there might be First Amendment issues with it. So I'm a little concerned about enforceability, but...
Yeah.
Do we know if any of our officers have tattoos now?
I personally am not going to ask that question or look into that. I seem to recall somebody saying that they didn't have any visible tattoos, but this wasn't something that they were advocating for. I think it was something that, in the course of looking at all of this and trying to be comprehensive, and if we're making a change, do it all at once, we looked into adding that language. But again, I think several of us shared the solicitor's concern about whether or not that could be a free speech issue.
Well, in this day and age, I guess everything is potential. Okay, so we be prepared also to share your ideas about tattoos next week.
I think Jane had a
So
comment.
on the agenda, this will be listed as consideration of amendments, but if you choose not to, consideration of advertising the amendments. If you choose not to do that, you can put it off for another month, but that was how it will show in the newspaper and on your agendas.
But if we approve it, we can approve authorized advertising and still at the end of the day decide not to do it, right?
I'm sorry, say it again?
We can approve advertising.
He says we don't have to
I don't think we
advertise.
need to advertise.
No, it's not an ordinance.
Right, okay.
Okay.
So
So
the consideration of proposed changes.
be prepared next week, if you would, to discuss it further, and if you're prepared to, as is, approve it, or if you think something more should be done by way of research, be prepared to suggest that too. Okay, anything else?
Yes, I'm afraid so. There's also a proposed ordinance about limiting parking on Dartmouth, Cornell, and Harvard Avenue. I don't know if you have that in front of you, but it's ordinance 1080, and it would be amending chapter 440 of our ordinances related to parking. And on this one, I might need a little bit of help from Jane, but the idea is that we are making an amendment in order to prohibit parking from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, at the following locations: Dartmouth Avenue on the south side between Lafayette and Oberlin, Cornell Avenue on the east side between Harvard and Yale, Harvard on the north side between Chester Road and Yale Avenue. Borough residents who are in possession of a resident parking sticker issued in compliance with this ordinance are exempt from parking restrictions at these locations. And if you read this carefully, there is a little bit of a difference in the language between what I just read and where they would be exempted. It's a difference between it being on the west side of Cornell and the east side of Cornell. And Jane, I'm not trying to stick you in here, but if you could just explain.
Well, let me just back up how these all came to be here. I'll try and be brief. But these are all streets where we are having a tremendous, well, it's probably not a good choice of words. There are quite a few people parking on these blocks and going to the train. It appears to be a somewhat new phenomenon, probably a little bit of holdover from last summer when people came to Swarthmore in search of parking for the train because they couldn't get on at Wallingford and other spots, and found that we really don't regulate parking very much near the train station. We provide meter parking, but very close to the train station, except for a few blocks, you can park all day. And you can see, if you walk down this block, you'll see people pull into these spots and go to the train. Now, a lot of these people do have driveways, but it does mean that if they have more than one car or they have guests, these particular blocks are pretty well parked up all day, every day. It's been complicated or by the fact that the college has been doing a lot of construction and their vehicles have also been parked on these streets. And the college has tried to find some off-street parking.
That is their contractor.
Their contractors, thank you, yeah. So, for instance, on Dartmouth Avenue, there was a woman who said that she has a handicap plate, and she said somebody waits for her to leave every morning and pulls into her spot and goes to the train. So we could give her a handicap. We do have a procedure for doing on-street parking for people who don't otherwise have a place to park. She does not have off-street parking. But that's one of 3 complaints we've received from that block of people who said there is nowhere to park during the day. Cornell Avenue, similarly, that block has been pretty well completely parked up. I try and walk it frequently. Again, it's a little better now that that's where most of the college contractors were parking, but there are still a lot of commuters parking there. And then Harvard Avenue, we started to get complaints about probably in the last year or 2. In fact, that came up during the Headstrong hearings, and people have said, there's just constant cars parked there. People at the nursery school have talked about it. So what this would mean is that the only people who could park on these locations are people who already have the blue resident parking stickers. And I don't know.
Cornell's not that way today.
Only 2 a.m. No, there's no restriction on the 200 block of Cornell. There's no parking on one side of the street. It actually happens to be posted on the wrong side of the street. So when I started looking at the people are parking, there's the side of Cornell that they're parking on now, which is the west side, it's actually supposed to be no parking. And the parking is supposed to be on the other side of the street.
Because they never park on the east side.
Right. But it's posted for no parking on the east side, but that's not how our ordinances read. But that's a...
And is that going to be changed?
That would be changed. So what we would do, we would limit parking on both sides of the street, but residents continue to the park where the side that they're parking now. I really don't know how everybody who lives on these blocks feels about this. I don't know. I think I started to hear rumblings as David Cragen has told people about this ordinance. They're worried, well, what if there's a B&B on one of these blocks, where are they going to park? And where's my nanny going to park? And if I have people walking on my street. Now, from the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. parking, you can just get a guest pass. But is that gonna work? If we give out a lot of guest passes, are we really doing anything to solve the problem? I don't know.
So that would solve the commuter problem, but.
It would solve the commuter problem, yes. Unless,
I
some of the
I would
commuters-
say it's tied very specifically to the construction. And to say anything else is complete.
Yeah, I went down,
Maybe true of Cornell, but not of these other places.
yeah, and actually it's.
Well, if Cornell's included in what we're considering?
No, no, no.
Harvard definitely, Harvard.
Yeah.
Harvard's
They also have a lot of postal employees who park.
They do. No, we do have other options. The postal employees, looks like any other employee, can buy a $25 pass. And also, a lot of the postal employees only park there for a limited amount of time, and then they park closer to the
Well,
outside.
probably 6 months from the end
But
of
there
the
are people
construction.
in the office who park there, because there's no,
The
the post office is,
101 South Chester Road,
they all park on site.
they park on site. No,
Yeah, that's College Building, they park on
Right.
site, yeah.
So if you don't have a permit, you can park there 2 hours, is that the?
No, this is no parking. The
No
police-
parking at all.
Right, the police really have a difficult time.
Yeah.
They don't have enough staff to
Okay.
do the 2-hour parking, mark the tires and that. So for them, it would be easier to just say you can only park here for your
I
police
get it.
sticker.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just kind of to float it out there, see what people think, get some input. I think we can certainly look at Cornell and see if it looks much better now that the college contractors are gone, but, I mean, I've been down the block, well, I just don't know.
One thing I would add, I've walked that stretch of Cornell
Right.
twice a day, and, yeah, they were for a while, there were 2 postal guys who were poking, but today it was pretty empty today. But we have, and we have gotten complaints about, you go down Rutgers, you take a ride on Cornell, or you go continue on Rutgers right there. We have gotten some complaints from people on that block of Rutgers. If you block off Cornell, you may drive more over to that block on Rutgers, and we may hear from that again also.
Rutgers is actually only 2-hour parking, as are several blocks of Harvard. And then actually, David Cragen got, from a resident who lives at the corner of Park and Harvard, he said that the borough moved the no parking here to corner signs on 200 Black Park Avenue, and those people are now parking on Harvard, where there are no parking restrictions.
Yeah, it's a little bit like you move them off of this and then
Yeah.
move them up there, unless you just kind of zone out an entire zone or something.
Right.
Well, next week we will vote on whether to authorize advertising of the ordinance as presently drafted.
And can I ask, is it necessarily all 3 together, or could you do 2 streets and not a third street?
Sure, absolutely, you can do whatever you want. You could advertise it like this, you could even add that Harvard. I would assume that if you advertise all of them and get that word out there, and then you take them away, you wouldn't have to re-advertise. It's just kind of saving a little bit of money and getting, so maybe even, when David has a minute, I was gonna ask him what he thought about those other blocks of Harvard. And the Public Safety Committee had also considered maybe taking the ones that are currently 2-hour and just completely restricting those. Because again, it's pretty hard for the department to have enough personnel to get out there and really see who's there for more than 2 hours.
But if we did this, I think we'd really have to permit residents to get those guest passes.
I think so, yeah.
Because, they might have people visiting, they might have their own contractors coming to their house to do work, so.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll have that before next week, and if in fact between now and then it's proposed to add any other streets or parts of streets to the ordinance, then we get a revised draft and we'll look at that next week.
Thanks.
I still am amused, in what other place in the world would you be talking about Cornell between Harvard and Yale? Just very interesting. Okay, anything else, public safety wise?
No, I don't think so, and I don't know, I'm sorry, Ross, I'm trying to see your calendar. I don't know if David planned to have a committee meeting this month, but if he does, that would be on Tuesday, the 20th at 7:30
Okay.
PM. And he
Okay.
can confirm that next week.
Good, okay,
Right.
thank you. Thank you very much for stepping in, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Public Works.
David, we did not meet in May, so I don't have a report. I tentatively have a conflict in June, so I'm probably not meeting this month unless there's enough that drives a meeting. And I don't want to steal the borough manager's thunder, but some of our brick and mortar pedestrian things are well underway throughout the borough. So there are sidewalks moving on Chestnut and on Harvard and all about the town. So it's a little startling to see them up close in real life, but it's exciting too. I've heard good feedback from several parents today at SRS. So.
We have had some challenges with sidewalks not meeting driveways at really perfectly level areas, so we'll probably have a few change orders to adjust people's driveways, not significant amount of work. So far, the only change order has been to add one small drain and to pay an extra $450 for concrete that's set up in 4 days rather than 10 days. So the contractors have just been phenomenal and clean and very responsive so far.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
I had observed most closely the one going on between Dickinson and Little Crow Creek Park on Crescent, Harvard Crescent. And you wouldn't have thought that a new sidewalk is as much of a construction project as it turned out to be for a variety of reasons. Can I ask what, if any, notice was given to the residents in the area where this work was to be done, that the work would be coming forward?
The residents who were directly impacted were notified directly in their mailboxes. The other ones were notified by signs being posted. I had one person who had called me and shared the schedule with her and told her it would be about a 2-week process. I know she's not happy with it, but I feel that the usual notification process.
And if the sidewalk was on one side of the street, the notice would also go to people on the other side of the street?
Well, no, they really were because the people who were on the sidewalks were going in were directly impacted. Like they couldn't even park in their driveways, as I was just saying. So they got by far the more.
Okay.
But they're the ones we sent letters to. If it was the sidewalk was on your side of the street, we sent
Absolutely,
them.
and not one of them, they've been contacting the contractors directly when there have been issues, that's correct. So there was no notice given to anyone on the other side of the street other than the signs at the end of the block and the no parking and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
And they're typically 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, Monday to Friday?
I think they've been 7 probably to 3.
They were on Chestnut today when I was there at 8:30. So it's not a 24-hour operation.
But there was some unhappiness surfaced from one direction on that subject. But the work will be done by and by.
Right.
And they'll go away. Any other business to be brought before us tonight? Mayor, Tim?
This past week, I had the pleasure of being invited to and attending the African dance at Swarthmore Borough schools. Their 25th year of doing it, which is kind of amazing. It's quite an institution and wonderful opportunity for the kids to understand things more globally and still act on them locally. So it's good stuff. On SRS, we also I had a talk with Dr. Tuck about some of the parents had been parking sort of illegally while they're dropping kids off and picking kids up. So we kind of reinforced that they should not park on crosswalks or in fire hydrants and things like that. So that's Dr. Tuck is going to say no doubt about that. We have, as was mentioned before about police officers, we have been 2 officers down. But my understanding is that today Officer Barno is back on the schedule.
Good.
So that's good news.
She had been injured in pursuit of an escaping miscreant. It was caught.
It was caught.
It was good. Yes. I don't know if it was caught by her, if it was
in conjunction with.
In conjunction. Right. Okay. Good.
It was.
I'm glad she's back. And the other one is the vacancy created by Ed Klein, or do we have to get another officer out?
No, that was the other one.
Okay, good.
And that's Sergeant Stufflitz was Ed Klein's partner. So Ray has been soloing. So if anybody's going to be soloing, Ray's a good one for it. So it's
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Okay.
And, coming up on the 15th is the start of the new summer music series at the amphitheater right out here. There's going to be ukulele music on the 15th. So, but it's going to run from 6 till almost 9, and
3 hours of uninterrupted music.
You've been warned.
The mind boggles.
well, that might be possible, but it's not going to be.
Arthur Godfrey would be hog heaven if anybody else here knows who Arthur Godfrey was.
You're all too young for that.
The idea is to encourage people to either bring picnic suppers or to get, you can visit one of our local food merchants, and they're supposed to be designing their own sort of takeout picnic suppers that you can get from various places.
Wonderful.
And it will be, we're hoping this becomes, it'll be eight nights over the summer, starting in June and ending September. And the schedule's posted in many places, and it looks like all the musicians who are playing are Swarthmore-based musicians. And all the musicians are donating their time for this
Wonderful.
to get us started. So,
Okay.
good stuff.
Thank you. Any other public comment tonight?
Good evening, Council. Rick Lee, owner of 737 Harvard Avenue. Was surprised to hear that Harvard Avenue is now being considered for under this new ordinance for resident-only parking. As an owner on the street, every single house has a driveway. As a member of the Presbyterian Church my entire life, any memorial service, funeral, etc., would now prohibit the members of the church from parking on the street if they are not a resident of the borough. I think that's a hardship. That is not fair. Right now, all parking spots are taken during the day between commuters and contractors working on the current college project, which will be ending in August. So I think what we found prior to the construction is some spots were filled by commuters that wanted to have a nice long walk to the train station, and that seemed to be fine, but not all spots. And this left open enough spots for people visiting the church, especially during nursery school when the back area of the parking is completely closed to the members of the church. So I consider this a hardship for those of us that are residents on the street, and so I'm going to voice my hope that you do not add from Yale to Chester Road on Harvard to resident-only parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
David, just a thought that comes up with Rick's comments, it just made me think that when they start doing the BP, whatever building up there, we may see some of the same sort of thing where contractors or...
Well,
They have a whole different system.
yeah, they have a different system, and actually written into their land development agreement, oh, you don't work on it, sorry, they actually are, their contractors are not parking in the borough. They're renting or somehow deal with the Springfield Mall, and they're going to get bused in. Also in the land development agreement, we specified how they're getting on and off campus, so a very limited number of streets will be impacted by all that traffic.
That's great.
Okay. Anybody else in public? Public comment is closed. Borough manager, please.
Yeah, I just want to thank Susan Kelly, who's in the back, who joined me on Saturday morning with several Boy Scouts, and Al Federico as the assistant scoutmaster, and we had a very successful e-recycling event. Took in about 45 really old, sad-looking televisions and a few air conditioners. And I would say generally we were busy the entire time. People seemed really happy with the event. The consortium of municipalities in Delaware County is actually hoping to institutionalize at least one event every month in, we hope, various locations in the county, some of which will be more convenient, some will be less for Swarthmore residents. But people seem to have an endless stream of electronics and televisions to get rid of. So I would say it was a very successful event. People were really happy we were there.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm going to miss the meeting next Monday. So you're on your own.
Well, we'll try to muddle through. Bob?
Just for executive session, thanks.
Okay. Okay, this public meeting is adjourned, and we will go into executive session. Let me make I want to express appreciation to the EMT service of the borough, which I took advantage of 2 Wednesdays ago. I came off the golf course. I did win on that. I managed to get my way home in total agony and was hauled by there to Springfield Hospital, where my good orthopedic surgeon, who happened already to be operating on somebody else in the hospital, did manage to reduce a hematoma which had developed on my right knee. And if you ever have one of those puppies, it's about the worst thing you can feel, but it gets better with every bit of stuff they take out. But they just responded quickly, and even Sergeant Thomas came along, I think, just for the ride or whatever. So I
heard he was a luminary.
I felt fully taken care of by all the authorities of the borough, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight.